All right, welcome back, everybody. And so good to have all of you. And if this is your first time, there's a little icon on the bottom right that looks like a chat icon. It's a little box. And if you click on that, then you can type in there. And you can ask a question there, or there's a little hand raise feature. I don't always see it. So if somebody sees that somebody has raised their hand and I've been missing it for a long time, please let me know. And I have to improve this internet. I have to figure out how I'm going to do that. So I'm sorry if I lose frames, but the audio should be clear. That's the most important part. Julia, great to have you. So you're our second Julia. So we have one Julia in Norway and one Julia. You're in Italy, I think. Kim says the audio is very good. That's fantastic. That's the important part, right? Good. Gurav, great to have you. Hope I said it right. It's good? Okay. All right. All right. So here's our first question. Amber says, "Hey, Forrest, what do you think of sending multiple ohms at once into various chakras? For instance, sometimes I will send 6 ohms, one in each chakra, all at once. And the results have been very blissful and purifying, especially when sense reversal is pretty deep. Another thing I will sometimes do is send 3 ohms into one chakra and placing one at the origin, sending one from the front and a third from the back, and chanting them like a triple ohm bomb. Sometimes I feel inclined to do an ohm loop, where there is 1 or 2 ohms going from the back to the front in a circle and catching the same chakra each time. That one feels less deeply calm than the others, but seems somewhat okay. This has all been very nice, but I wonder if you think there is a potential risk. Also, where'd I go? Also, meditation has been very good lately. So much grace. Thank you." So great question. And so the basic is I'm just going to, so this is a free flow Om practice. You're not trying to combine it with your breath. Sometimes you combine it with your breath. It can be very powerful, which is great. But just a free flow Om practice. Here's the spine, and I'm going to Om back towards the spine. I'm always trying to get to the origin. And you can do that from the front, and you can do that also from the back. And both are good. So usually I suggest that if you're going to do it from the front, you just stay in the front. And if you're going to do it from the back, you just stay in the back. And you don't switch it around too much. But this is okay, because this is you getting to know the Om Japa. And wow, really dropping a lot of frames, it seems like. So yeah, I'm going to have to improve my internet somehow. It's a satellite, so I hope they can help me with that, hopefully. But you're getting to know the Om Japa, and it's really important that you make the technique your own. It's really important that you find your way inside of it, that you feel. So there's a principle that I've always used when I was training with the Ashok. It's like, this is what he gave me, and I might go out and I might experiment, but then I'm going to always come back to what he gave me. And then I'll go out again and I might experiment, but I'm always going to come back to what he gave me. And that's how I make sure I never get lost. And so I'm always returning to the principles, especially that he gave me. I'm always returning to the basics that he gave me. And that's how I don't lose my way. What about the first Om in the perineum? Well, there is an outward. Let me make sure I can see the whole question here. So great question, Amber, and I think it's a great practice that you're doing. It's also beneficial to Om on the sides of the chakras, so not just through the center channel, but on the sides. So you might like that as well. Om on either side of the chakras. You can also divide the body in half mentally, and then chant Om all on one side, and then chant Om all on the other side. And you might find that helps to wash out the body from your perception. So when you're very, very deep and the body is holding on to your perception, it's sticking with you, you can wash it out by washing one side and then the other, and then divide the front and the back and just do all of the front and then all of the back. So I put that in an old video for you guys here on Patreon. It's called Advanced Om Japa Practice. And that's a really wonderful way to wash out the perception of the body. So you're asking if there is any problem with that. If you're doing a lot of spinning, then you're going to induce the third knot. So you're going to feel some of that spinning eventually. And that's okay if you know that's okay. And so if you start to get a sensation like that, or you see the spiritual eye spinning, don't let it freak you out. It's just the third knot, and it's totally normal. And I kind of think of it like you're actually, the left brain processes, as you come out of them, it's kind of like you're unscrewing the jar. And so you actually, sometimes the yogi will feel as if there's a spinning happening as you come out of those processes. So that's what the third knot actually is. And Leslie, you asked, what about the first Om in the perineum? There is no front to back for this, is there? Is this actually below the bottom of the spine? So it's all in the dorsal vagal. And the dorsal vagal is right in front. Well, actually, the projection of the chakra goes through the whole body. And so the front of the first chakra is the muscle control and the control of the anus. There's no polite way to put that. So the energy, as it floats back towards the spine, that's the origin. And so one of the exercises for the yogi is to actually squeeze the anus and feel that engagement of the muscles, and then let go and feel the energy float back towards the spine. And you can do that with most of the chakras. So you can do that with the first, the second, you can kind of do that with the third, but this floating, you can do it with the throat chakra, this floating back towards the spine. If you feel even a hair of that, it's very informative to what we're trying to do in the Kriya Yoga. We're trying to slowly get back towards the origin until you can. And so your Om Japa practice will reach the point where you can almost instantly feel the origin. And then you'll reach the point where 1 or 2 Oms and you'll be feeling bliss in the origin of the spine. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking to clean everything out and get back to the bliss, so that as soon as you think of the chakra, or as soon as you begin an Om, you almost instantaneously begin to feel the bliss. And that's quite cleaned out, isn't it? And so it takes a little time. And sometimes it takes years and years to reach that point. But that's where it's going. It's going all the way back to the origin every single time. Let me admit somebody. Damascus says, when practicing Ketcheri and feeling towards some of the backside, I feel a rounded nub. Am I trying to get to an open area past that? Yes. If you're going through the back of the throat, then it sounds like you're feeling the adenoid. The adenoid. So look up the adenoid at the back of the throat in, some diagrams on the throat and anatomy. And that is Nandi. So when you go to the Shiva temple in South India especially, they will have the lingam, which is your tongue, your upraised tongue. They will have the yoni, which is the sphenoid at the top of the nasal pharynx, like the spout of a whale at the top, the roof of your nasal pharynx. And then they will have, in front of all of that, they will have Nandi outside of the temple. And so that is the adenoid. So the first thing your tongue might encounter is Nandi, and then the tongue will finally come and touch the sphenoid. So it sounds like that's what you're touching. That hump is Nandi's hump. And so you want to go past that, and there'll be an open area. And then if you go all the way to the front, you'll feel the nasal septum, which is the very sharp bone which separates the two nostrils, right? So the two nostrils are right here. They're very small, actually. But, they're right here. And then there's a sharp bone, and that's the nasal septum. And then if you follow that sharp bone upwards, then at the top, you'll feel the sphenoid, which is a very small indentation. And that's what you're looking for. Now, you can also go into either nostril, and you'll stimulate the sinus, which is right here. This is the ethmoid sinus. So you put the tongue on one side, and then you put the tongue on the other side, and that will stimulate the ethmoid. And it's extremely calming and balancing, so it's very powerful. And that was one of Lahiri Baba's favorites, to do that. Put the tongue back and forth, and you'll just get extremely peaceful and blissed out. But then the pinnacle is the sphenoid. So you touch the sphenoid, you stimulate the sphenoid, and it's stimulating the pituitary, which is on the other side. So very, very powerful. Oh, so Lesta says, do you do 1 Om for each chakra, or 2 or 3? So when I'm doing the Kriya Yoga technique, then I'm only doing 1 Om in each chakra as I go all the way up. And then I'm doing 1 Om in each chakra as I go all the way down. But when you're doing a free flow practice, where you're just only doing the Om Japa without your breath, then you can do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or as many as you will like. And I was teaching this to one of my students, and I'm like, I will just feel all of the chakras, and I'll say, okay, which one of you needs the most attention? And then I'll zero in on that chakra, and I'll just continuously Om into that chakra over and over again. And then again, I will scan all of the chakras, and I'll say, which one of you needs the most attention? And then I'll go into that one, and I'll Om, and I'll Om, and I'll Om into that chakra. And I said, this is my hunt and destroy Om Japa. And he goes, oh my God, I'm going to call, that's like a whack-a-mole. That's a whack-a-mole Om Japa Kriya. I'm like, I like that. And then he called me back. He says, is it okay if I smash the chakra? I've been so delicate with my Kriya practice for years and years. And now you said these Om bombs. What if it's Hulk? What if the Hulk is smashing the chakra with Om Japa? I'm like, that's fine. Try it out. See how you like it. He said, oh God, I love it. Hulk smash the chakra and obliterate the chakra. And now it's fun, and your heart is in it, and you're interested, and it's not just like Om, and you're just kind of, it's great to be holy. It's great to be when you're interested. But when you start to get bored, then your heart's no longer in it. So finding a way to bring your heart back into it is extremely important. You want that skin in the game. You want that interest. High Forest, Glenn says, some teach that the Yoga Sutras support using focus and breath control alone are needed. The Yoga Sutras support using focus and breath control alone are needed. My inner guidance has uniformly led me towards the primary importance of healing and love devotion in the practice itself. Could you illuminate what you see as the best balance? Yeah. So when you're using breath and you're using focus, everything that we do is based off of Patanjali. But Patanjali is the shorthand. So the longhand, the large book is the Bhagavad Gita. And the really short, here's the Gita, and then here's the Yoga Sutras. So the Yoga Sutras are like cliff notes. And so a lot of it is left out, but a lot of it is implied. So for example, the Buddhists have pulled apart the 4 Brahma Viharas, right? That you're going to encounter first loving kindness, and then it's going to become compassionate, and then you're going to find joy, and that joy will come so high that it will turn into expansive equanimity, right? So the love just goes higher and higher and higher into a higher and higher and more subtle form of bliss, right? And they've really pulled that apart. Well, that's in the Yoga Sutras, and it's like 4 words. It's like this long. It's just like, so the Yoga Sutras are really cliff notes. They're extremely pithy and condensed. And so all of that therapy is in there, but it's just extremely condensed. So it's actually in the Yoga Sutras, but it's just overlooked by most people who are commenting on the Yoga Sutras. There's some very good commentaries, but most always when we talk about the Yoga Sutras, we're just missing loads and loads of what it has to say because it's so condensed. Healing and love and devotion.
Very important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Healing and love and devotion is absolutely essential. So when we're doing the Om Japa, we are healing ourselves, right? And that's going to awaken. Right. Well, the 4 Brahma Viharas are in the Yoga Sutras, and so they're commenting on that love and devotion, aren't they? That it's going to start as love, and it's going to transform eventually even into something higher.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I may lose you here.
Oh, that's okay. And Bernard says, why is Krishna depicted as blue? Is he an alien? Oh, no. They're just trying to show that he was divine. That anybody who is a different color is often, they're being depicted as divine. So you have Rama, you have Krishna, you have Vishnu. They'll all be depicted as blue. And it's something that is showing that they are divine. And when you look at the sky is blue. And the sky is so huge, right? So are they showing that the sky, something which is so big, has been condensed into a bodily form? That might be a very good way to think about it. Now, Satya Sharan found himself in this very deep state where he would look into the spiritual eye and he would instantly go into his right brain. And when he went into his right brain, he would start to see himself. So imagine you're there washing the dishes and you look down and you see the dish that you are washing. And then you look into your spiritual eye and you actually see yourself washing the dish. Not just the dish that you're washing, but you actually see yourself washing that dish from behind. And that's the state that Satyasharan Lahiri found himself in Yes, it's also the color of the kutastha. Absolutely. And so that was that very deep state. And when he would see himself, sometimes he would see himself as white. Sometimes he would see himself as blue, just like Krishna. And sometimes he would see himself as white that would turn into light and he would just disappear. And so all of that is coming from the right brain. And it's the subconscious and the higher self, which are communicating something profound, something which is divine. And so all of these pictures, when somebody said to me, why does this divine mother have all of these arms, right? Well, they're trying to show all of these qualities of the divine in one picture. And so they're trying to put as many symbols into the picture as they possibly can. So that's why they're doing it. And that might not appeal to you. You might want a different picture where there aren't a bunch of arms, and that's totally okay. So I hope that helps. Hi, Forrest. When I have a deep experience like seeing the spiritual eye, as soon as I try to make sense of what is happening or get scared, I get out of the experience. You recommend doing Navi. Am I doing Navi wrong? Should I be doing it in the start of the third chakra and not in the belly? Is there anything else you recommend to not freak out and to help me go deeper into the experience? Well, this is very normal, by the way. So all of my deep experiences, I would very, very often get scared, and that scared feeling would throw me out of the meditation experience, of course, right? So that's very normal. And I just kind of started to accept that. And then it started to very slowly go away. And Navi is absolutely wonderful for that journey. So the Navi will absolutely help with that. And that's what it's for. So the Lahiris would give you the Navi and they would tell you, this is for courage. And it absolutely works that way. But the level of courage to watch yourself dissolve into the great expanse is quite profound, right? That's a lot of courage that we need. And so allow yourself to take a little bit of time to adapt yourself. And this is very, very important. So there's a point that Lahiri Baba made that in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks repeatedly for the vision of visions. And so he finally gets the cosmic vision and he says, oh my God, it's too much. Krishna, come back to me and just be the dualistic version of the friendship which I know with you. And so Krishna comes back and Lahiri Baba says, hey, this would not have happened if Arjuna had progressed more naturally. But he begged for the experience over and over again. He prayed for the experience over and over again. And so it came a little bit fast for him before he was fully psychologically ready for it. And so when you are entering into a deep state and you get a little bit afraid, it gives you that opportunity to face that fear of the unknown and to come out and go, oh my God, I didn't have to be afraid. That's a very, very, very important process that has to take place inside of the yogi. You have to dip your toe in and then pull it out. Oh my God. Dip your toe in and pull it out. Oh my God, what just happened? Dip your toe in. Oh my God. And you want to do that over and over again until you begin to trust the process, trust meditation, trust the higher self. And it doesn't come all at once. It takes time. And you got to give yourself that time and don't be in a rush, because if you're in a rush, you get Arjuna syndrome. And this actually happened to me. I prayed for 3 years for a samadhi. Damascus says it sounds like an epic samadhi. Yes, it was, absolutely. And there were some scary images inside of it. So he had to accept all of the good of creation and all of the bad of creation. He had to be accepting of all of that, and he couldn't do it. He was not psychologically ready for that epic acceptance. And so he freaked out. But yeah, that was a samadhi. Absolutely. And so if he had progressed naturally and gone through this cycle of being afraid and coming out and going, wait, I don't have to be afraid. If he had naturally done that, he would have slowly adapted his psychology to that. He would have gone into that experience and he would have been okay. And that was Lahiri Baba's point. And it's a profound point because it means that when you get a little bit scared, this is natural and it's part of the process, because you have to learn that the things that I thought were real are becoming less real, and the things that I thought were unreal are getting more real. And this is a humongous process. In fact, you could say that's the whole process. And so you're slowly letting go of identification with the left brain and getting into identification with the right brain. So beautiful question. Is it your belly? We do it into the belly button. And that's very important. It's very important that it's going in about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And that will make sure that the technique is correct. So very, very important. And no, you're not doing it wrong. I think you're doing it. I'm going to say, I think that you're doing it correctly. And you just have to understand that you're working deeply. So it's anxiety outside, that we can let go of that, right? But letting go of your identity and the things which you think are you, this is quite profound, the level of letting go that we are slowly enabling. And so it doesn't take days or weeks or months. It takes a long time. It's a very slow process because you're moving your whole identification from the left brain processes all the way into the right brain processes, and then you're in the non-dual. And so it's very, very, it's not a one and done process. It's definitely a lifetime process, right? Lesta says, thank you for your great answers. I found you as I was well into the Kriya breathwork, leaning forward and gradually straightening up while tightening the perineum and next 2 chakras above while inhaling long, slow breath up spine till the top of the head. And those are bandhas, by the way. Holding breath and attention on the top of the head as long as I can, and then continue for 15 minutes, then meditating and counting resonant breathing 30 to 45 minutes after that at 3 a.m. Is this, or where is this process in your steps of meditation? So those are bandhas, and bandhas are great, and bandhas are powerful. But when you do a lot of the bandhas at the perineum, before you have done a year of Om Japa in the chakras, then you have the potential to overstimulate the chakras at the lower end of the spine and cause a magnet towards the lower end of your spine rather than a magnet towards the brain. So the program of Kriya Yoga says we want to, first of all, clean all of the rooms in the house. And that means all of the chakras with the Om Japa. And we want at least a year of that before we're ready for some of these other things like bandhas. And then we want to create a magnet towards the brain. I don't want to go down. I actually want to go up. And so I'm going to create a magnet towards the brain. So a little breath hold will create a magnet towards the brain. And the neck lock will help create a magnet towards the brain. But overstimulating through the lower bandhas can be counterproductive. If the room is not clean down at the bottom, then all those issues will come up because of the bandha. And I just spoke to a yogi that's been doing this. And he's like, no, I haven't noticed anything negative about it. And then we got to talking. It's like, oh, yes, a whole bunch of sensuality just appeared in my life because I'm doing bandhas, 4 or 5 times a day. I'm like, yeah. So that's the overstimulation of the lower side of the spine. And for some, it'll be just fine. It won't be a problem. And for others, it will be a big problem. And so the Kriya answer is, don't do that. And not you could try it later. And like a little bit is okay, but over and over again, you're going to find some problems. We probably want to clean our house before we do that. And we want to create a magnet towards the brain rather than a magnet at the base of the spine. And so how do we do that? How do we create that magnet? Breath holds. And so I did the tranquil breath training, and I said, look, there's a very subtle form of the bandhas which are much more helpful to you than the very big, gross bandhas. Those can be helpful too, but sometimes, a lot of times, they're too much. But if you just breathe in and hold the breath, then you'll create a magnet towards the brain. And so I recommend that. So I recommend HRV resonance, sitting very still, clean out all of the chakras with Om Japa, and do a small, comfortable breath hold if you think you're ready. If you don't feel like it's a good time to do the breath hold, maybe you're feeling a little weak or something, like we talked about before, don't do the breath holds. But you're always going to be okay with HRV resonance. You're always going to be okay with sitting very still, and you can have such profound experiences with that and the Om Japa. So great. Lesta, great question. Great question. It's really important to understand what some of that is doing.
Hold.
Somebody said something?
Breath hold after the inhale, not the exhale.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
You said breath hold, then breath hold after the inhale.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's absolutely right. We're going to breathe in and hold rather than breathe out and hold. So if you breathe out and hold, you're creating a magnet towards the base of the spine. If you breathe in and hold, then you're creating a magnet towards the brain. William, thank you so much. Absolutely right. Lessa says to leave the body through the top of the head, to be in the void. That's the expansion. So we want to clean everything out, find the freeze response eventually, find the tranquil breath eventually, find ourselves rolled up. Our consciousness has risen up to the medulla or even the crown. And then we want to expand. That's what you're looking for. The expansion is actually a right brain process. And so that's how it works. Lessa says, I love that this is a bliss process which has helped me progress enormously. Beautiful. All right. Let me go to some of these questions, and then I'm going to come back to the questions over here. So Olga says, Dear Guruji, I am so interested in your opinion of the importance of being vegetarian for a Kriya yogi. Also, are you a vegetarian? So I will occasionally eat fish, and I have in the past eaten more protein. And for some of the times that was an issue of grounding, that I needed more grounding in the body. And one of the things that happens when you eat meat is there's usually inflammation in the body. And that's putting an extra load on the body. And that's one of the great reasons to have a certain amount of time where you're vegetarian. A lot of people will be vegetarian and they will hurt their body. So I was talking to a yogi, and his mother was absolutely, they were living not in a full Western country. And she had decided to be vegetarian, where the options for what to eat were very limited. And after a few years, she became extremely sick. And her son who was also a yogi and my student, he told her, "Mom, you're killing yourself with this diet." And she wouldn't listen to him. And just some really horrific problems. So very often, people are trying to be extremely strict in their vegetarian diet, and they're really hurting themselves, especially when the kinds of food that you can get and the kind of supplements that you can get are very limited. And so Yogananda talked about this extensively, and he said, I'm not a vegetarian. He said, I'm a rightitarian, meaning he's going to do whatever he needs to do, which is right for his body and hopefully right for meditation. And so the best way to look at it, I think, is that when you're eating lots of meat, it causes lots of inflammation. And when you go into meditation, then you have to overcome that. But when it comes to Kriya Yoga, I think the most important part is fasting and the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating. Because when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, the breath rate goes up. And if you eat a meal and then you try and meditate, you're going to notice that your breath rate is way up, and it becomes much, much more difficult to meditate because the breath rate's too high and the body's too busy to allow the mind to slow down. But if you fast for 3, 6, 12, or even 16 hours, and so that means my last meal is at 5 o'clock, and then all through the night, I'm fasting. And then I wake up, and my morning meditation, I've had 16 hours or more of time for the body to get rid of all of the food and all of the process of digestion. And now in the morning, my breath rate will be very, very slow because there's no load on the body. The body isn't trying to do all this work of digestion. So reducing my carbohydrates, reducing the meat, reducing the increasing your intermittent fasting is just tremendous for Kriya Yoga. But I think this issue of being a vegetarian is overemphasized in most lineages, and I think it's rather minor. In fact, I would say, now, if you're eating a lot of meat, of course, it's going to cause a lot of inflammation. It's going to cause a problem. But the carbohydrates are even a bigger issue for me personally. So carbohydrates are more important if you're eating bread, then it's going to increase the rate of your breath. And if you eat a lot less carbohydrates, you're going to notice, and so that's why I really encourage fats. So runny eggs, avocados are just absolutely just wonderful foods. And so why runny eggs? Because when you overcook the yolk, then you denature the natural fats inside of the egg. I have one student, he's super into health, more than me, and he said that he follows this doctor that says we ought to be fatitarians. I thought, oh my God, that sounds fantastic. So runny eggs, avocados, and then supplement from there, right? So a little carbohydrates, that's fine. But give your body that huge amount of rest if you can, 3, 6, 12, 16 hours, and then meditate and see how your breath rate has slowed down. And it's so helpful. So no, I'm not a strict vegetarian. Somebody told me, and I don't, maybe some of you can confirm this. They said that, I think they said in Bengal that they eat they eat fish like it's a vegetable. I don't know if that's true, but somebody told me that. So they will tell you I'm a vegetarian, but they're eating fish because fish is like a vegetable for them. I don't know. That's what they told me. So that's funny. So no, I'm not a very strict vegetarian. I will go long a long time being a vegetarian, but then I might have some fish, and very often it's for grounding. If the body is feeling like it's getting ungrounded and I need to help ground the body, the fish will do that. And it's very important that you get the right nutrients that you need. So if you are a vegetarian, watch what you're eating instead. Like, are you getting enough eggs? Are you getting enough fat? A lot of the modern problems that we have seem to be related to the low-fat diet, which the West has emphasized for so long. And they instead should have been emphasizing a low-sugar diet, a low-carbohydrate diet. But all those carbohydrates were great to sell. Cereal, bread. And so it's a great item to sell, right? And so the low-fat diet was emphasized for so long, and now we have just about the same time that we have the rise of cereal, we also have the rise of Alzheimer's. I'm sure there's other issues as well, but that great amount of carbohydrates and not enough fats coincide with the rise of Alzheimer's. Because what is your brain made of? Fat. What lubricates your lungs and keeps them soft? Fat. What helps all of your hormones and keeps your hormones in balance? Very important for the Kriya Yogi. Fat. What is in your skin that keeps it nice and soft? Fats, good omegas. So you could say I'm a fatitarian. Not quite, but I really like that. So great question, Olga. I hope that's helpful. And yeah, if you're I don't like to spend too much time on diet because it's such a complex issue for people to know exactly what you need, but you really need lots of nutrition. And so if you're going to be very strict with yourself, for example, being a vegetarian, then you need to figure out, where am I getting all of my nutrients? And please don't tell me you're getting them from the air, okay? Don't tell me that. Julia, I don't know, how are we going to separate? We've got two Julias now. So Julia from Italy. Hi, Forrest. I'll join. Thank you for the earlier time. I have a question regarding the Om Japa. I get lost sometimes doing it. And that's okay. If you get lost, try to keep track. It is good to try and keep track. But if you get lost, that's okay. You're going into the slower brainwaves. It's very normal to get lost. We want to try to keep enough of the conscious mind that we can keep track. But if you do get lost, just say to yourself, oh, I got lost in the slower brainwaves. That's totally okay. Let me come back to myself, try to keep track. But being lost is totally okay. I guess it's because I haven't cleared everything up enough. Is that so? Probably it's just the slower brainwaves that you're getting in contact with. So very normal. Thank you so much for the HRV. It is working very well with me as well. I'm enjoying the bliss and the meditations a lot more now. Ah, beautiful. I love it. Yeah, that's just the slower brainwaves. Don't worry about that. You're doing fantastic. And then you got another question here. I wanted to check in with you regarding chanting Om through the chakras. I get lost. Okay, great. We just answered that. Perfect. Charles says, when I roll up into the medulla, occurs accompanied by the subtle breath, and then goes into a blissful absorption at the medulla, then results in silence and stillness, but nothing more. What should I do to go even deeper? The first thing that you should do, Charles, is... Oh, Pooja, you're asking about the bandhas. We'll get into that. The first thing that you should do is just enjoy where you are at. When you come into a very deep state, and so here's my example, okay? So I found myself in this absorption, and I felt like this humongous pot of spaciousness. And in the pot there, I don't know, there was some lettuce or some curvy little thing of bliss. It was this curvy little noodle of bliss, or maybe it was a lettuce of bliss, I don't know, but it was just this current of bliss, and I'd have one current here and one current here. It was a very strange feeling, right? But it was absolutely gorgeous, just absolutely blowing my mind, and I'm just soaking in that, soaking and soaking it. It's just so huge. And then I have this little idea, right? And this is the buddhi mind. It's this tiny little thought that you'll have. And so it's not the manas mind. It's the upper nervous system buddhi mind, right? And I had this little thought, I wonder if this is an absorption or if it's actually a samadhi. And well, okay, so the way that I check that is I look down, and I'm feeling really, really huge, right? And so I have to look way down inside of myself to see if there's a potato down at the pot, at the bottom of the pot, right? So I look all the way down. Oh yes, forest and the body are still down there at the bottom of the pot. That's the potato. And I'm like, okay, so I'm an absorption. This is an absorption, and I don't care, because, oh my God, this ripple of bliss is just amazing. So I'm just soaking in that, and I don't even know how long I soaked in that. I lost time. There was no time. I was just the bliss. I was just these ripples of bliss in this huge pot. And then I'm like, I wonder, I should check again. And I look down. And the thought was like this small, I think I should check. And I looked down, and down at the bottom of the pot, there was no potato. The forest was gone. So I was only this huge pot of space and bliss. And sometimes that's the transition from absorption to samadhi, from a dualistic state of absorption to the non-dual state where there is only the thing which you are absorbed in. So think about that. I am absorbing in this hugeness, whatever it is, or I'm absorbing in this stillness. I'm absorbing into this void. How do I go deeper into what I am absorbing? Well, you hug it, you love it, you embrace it, you hold it more. That's how you go. So that's the first thing, and it's the real thing, is that So what is the difference? I always think of like a speedometer, like you reach a critical mass and the speedometer just tips over. you reach a critical speed and the gauge just goes bleep, and it finishes out, right? And so that's what you're looking for, a critical mass. You're looking for, okay, I have this much of my right brain, and I'm just touching it, and I feel a little bit of absorption. And then I feel this much of my right brain, and then I feel this much of your right brain, and then I feel this much of your right brain, and now it's critical mass. It just goes bleep, and that's all there is. And so that's the difference between absorption and samadhi. And even in the samadhi, you can have those tiny little buddhi thoughts, like, is this an absorption or is this a samadhi? That's a bit too long. It's probably like a blip of a question. And that's what I had. I had this blip of a question, and I looked down, and it was a samadhi, because in the Savikalpa, there is still reasoning and recollection, Patanjali tells us. It's only in the Nirvikalpa where there is no reasoning and recollection. And that just means that you're so into the experience, you don't have time. You're not experience. You're so into the being, what you are, what you have become. You're so into it, you don't have time to ask a question or think a thought, right? And you've had those moments, haven't you, where something is so overwhelming you don't even think, right? And that's the Nirvikalpa. There's just no thought. You're completely washed out of the left brain processes. Suba says yes. Perfect. So beautiful, Charles, and just keep soaking and soaking and soaking. and look for that critical mass, that where it just takes over. It's just so big that it takes over. And that's it. That's what pushes you into the non-dual state. Simon. Hello, Forrest. I've been watching my breath closely during the day, the last couple of days, and I've noticed I'm mostly breathing through the right nostril. I wonder if that's normal. It is normal. I've heard different explanations of what breathing through the right and left nostril means, but I wanted to get your take concerning Kriya Yoga and this topic. So when you enter into HRV resonance, this will begin to balance, and I wouldn't be over concerned. I wouldn't be more concerned with HRV resonance. And the 4 proofs. That's going to set you in the right direction. But the body, when you're going through the day, sometimes it will be, and it's really about the left and the right brain. And that's affecting how the body is used. So if I'm aggressive in the left brain, then the right channel is being used. And if I'm letting go and expansive and maybe creative, well, that's the right brain function, and the left side will be used. And so sometimes we need to be aggressive, and sometimes we need to let go in our lives. And so that will dictate what channel is being used. And if your body stays too long in an aggressive mode, then it can be detrimental, right? So if you all work and no play, that's not good. You have to have these moments of rest and relaxation and recovery. And that's what the HRV resonance is going to enable. And so if you notice that in your nostrils, you might just take a break. How can I relax? How can I let go? How can I step back? How can I enter into the whole for a moment? And you'll notice that begins to shift the breath. But it's very normal. So I was talking to, when I was exploring HRV resonance with Dr. Gervitz, he goes, we tried to correlate the left and the right nostril with health, because they said, the yogis said, that if the 2 nostrils become balanced, like you use one and it switches at a certain rate, that's going to be healthy. And he said, we had very young people who were very healthy, and it was not switching at that speed. And I'm like, well, doctor, those kids were not healthy enough. He's like, oh no, they were young. They were very healthy. Yeah, and did they go out and drink on the weekends? Because that's going to change everything. Were they eating a lot of meat or eating a lot of carbohydrates? Because that's going to change everything. Were they not fasting enough? Did they enter into intermittent fasting every day? Because that's going to create a change. So you're not talking about a normal level of health. I tried to tell him, you're talking about a superhuman level of health that the yogis were noticing at the rate which the left and right nostril will switch back and forth. And he couldn't really hear me, but that's okay. I was just there for the HRV resonance. But that's what they're talking about. They're talking about a pinnacle of health that you might be able to touch every once in a great while. But if you don't touch it every single day, welcome to the club. It's very, very normal. It's very, very difficult to enable that kind of switching. I mean, you've got to be at the pinnacle of health to do that. And I don't mean a normal pinnacle of health. I mean, a kind of a yogic superhuman pinnacle of health. That's what they're talking about, that it will switch back and forth. But if you notice, like, oh, it's been in one nostril, it's been in my right nostril all day, then it might be a good idea to kind of sit back and relax and do some HRV resonance and just say to yourself, I let go, I relax. I let go, I relax. Lay down on the floor, practice grounding. I surrender, I let go. I surrender, I let go. Because life is hard. Life is so hard. And it will engage your left brain. And so we want these practices which allow us to let go. So fantastic question, Simon. Thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you, Forrest.
Oh, you're so welcome. Nathan says, greetings, Forrest. I am curious to get your take on the relationship between pratyahara and paravasta. Can you, that relationship. So what is pratyahara? What is that? That is the freeze response. And so what is the relationship between letting go and the freeze response? Well, it's extremely important, isn't it? So what are we doing? We're doing HRV resonance. We're doing sitting very still. We're noticing the 4 proofs. And we are then letting go. We're doing some Om Japa and we're letting go. We're enjoying the calm and the freeze. We're enjoying that calmness and that relaxation until it gets so deep into the dorsal vagal that we encounter the freeze response, right? That is pratyahara. So what enabled that? Well, it was absolutely the enjoyment. So you'll see yogis in different lineages, and this is actually one of the big comments of the Buddhists, is that you get these yogis which are do constantly, and they forget to let go and just be. And that's a criticism by Buddhism, and they're absolutely right. And then the yogis are on the other side going, well, you Buddhists, sometimes all you do is let go, let go, let go, let go, and you forget that there's something that you could be doing that would help you out. And so if you put those two together, oh my God, how do you have a beautiful practice? And so that's do, be, do, be. So what's the relationship between, what you're really asking is, what's the relationship between the freeze response and letting go? Well, it's absolutely important that you enjoy the yoga which you are doing. So I'm going to welcome Ashwin. It's so important that I'm going to do the work of the yoga, and then I'm actually going to enjoy what I got from it. If I want my states to continue to go deep, I have to enjoy what I got. So if you're that yogi, you're like, do. Where is it? Where is it, God? Where is it, damn it? You know, because I've been there. I've done that. Do. Where is it? Well, I'm not in a state of enjoyment at all. And so I'm gonna wash out that second half of being. I couldn't even do it. I couldn't even step into the arena, right? And I did that to myself for the longest time. And I had to use sleep to get past my stubborn left brain that was just do. I couldn't just enjoy. So having that be and that enjoy segment in your meditation is absolutely critical in order to create the depth, which enables the freeze response. And now you're halfway. You're halfway through the Yoga Sutra. So if you guys, because I got this call one time, and I know this is a long time ago. I think you guys get it a lot more because I harp on it, right? But I got this wonderful call, and this yogi goes, oh man, I'm not doing this good. And my meditations, all I have is the freeze response. And I'm on the other side like, do you know how long that took us to find the freeze response? Do you know? You know, because for some of us, it took so bloody long. And I've got students that they're like, Forrest, you shouldn't even be saying that. It took you less time than it took me. It took me 40 years and I'm only getting it now. And you, it only took like 20 years. I'm like, yeah, but that's still quite a long time, right? And you guys are getting that freeze response and sometimes 3 months or 6 months or a year. I mean, it's just crazy. That level of success that you guys are having is just absolutely bonkers. In this yogic world, it is crazy. And so all of you are heroes, okay? All of you are absolutely heroes. This is the hero's journey, and you are running it, and it's kind of amazing. So I'm just always so proud of you guys, just all the time. Nathan, fantastic question. And we saw some. I think I saw a hand raised. Jeff, did you have your hand raised? It might take him a little minute to find the button. I'll answer another question here. Lessa says, how do I know if I'm ready to continue doing this? I also have been, doing the Om Japa in the chakras daily. I don't know if I have much more time. I'm 81. Don't be in a rush, okay? Don't be in a rush. That's a left brain process. Be confident. Put this much trust in the divine. Divine Mother, I want to get free before I die. I don't know if I can do that. I'm putting it into your hands. That's a little trust, right? Do that for a minute. Do that for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to take this back, but for 5 minutes, I'm going to put it into your hands. Divine Mother, I want samadhi before I leave this earth. I'm worried about it. As a yogi, I'm worried. Nobody understands these, but you guys understand this worry, right? So, Divine Mother, I'm going to put that into your hands, and just put it in her hands for 5 minutes, and then put it in her hands for 10 minutes, and just learn that trust a tiny bit at a time, okay? And don't be in the left brain worried about it, because then you become manic and the processes don't flow. And so, John, I don't think John is here, but John is my favorite story. So he's going into these really big, profound samadhis, and he says, Forrest, I want to tell you the biggest thing that I learned from you. And I'm thinking samadhi, I'm thinking HRV resonance. I'm like, okay, let's hear it. And he goes, flow. I'm like, flow? Yes, Forrest, I was not flowing in my practice. And you taught me that flow, and it absolutely changed everything. So that's a yogi going very, 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 very deep, okay? And he says flow. So listen to John. Flow in your practice. And so what does that look like? Do, be, relax, enjoy. Do, be, relax, enjoy. That will set a cycle of flow inside of you. It's so amazing. I was breathing and holding. Yeah. It's okay to do breath holds, but I don't recommend that you hold it at the bottom of the spine. Do the breath hold and allow it at the top of the breath and allow it to pull you up into the brain. It's much more subtle. It's much more profound. I think you'll really like that, Lesta. Try that at the end of your practice. So do the HRV resonance, sit very still, notice the 4 proofs, do some Om Japa, and then once you feel a little bit deep, and first of all, enjoy that. And then if you want it to continue, try out just a tiny little bit of breath holds, make them very comfortable, make sure you're ready for that, and do a little bit of breath holds. William says, plus a lot of the vegetables we get today, especially in the US, are not nutrient dense. Oh my God, absolutely true. And this was true years and years ago. One of the doctors that I was studying with, he found in the 1960s, it was the Veterinarian Society that said, look, if you've got pets, you've got to supplement their diet because all of the nutrients are gone from all of the food. That was in the 1960s. Can you imagine what it's like now? So yeah, supplementation is so important, and not just vitamins, but also minerals. So if you can take a little bit. So one of the things I recommend is find a colloidal, that means liquid form, but a colloidal mineral supplement, and then drink a little bit of that every day, and notice that there's this strange kind of energy that enters into your body. So if you eat sugar, you get a high boost of energy and then it's gone, you crash, right? If you eat a carbohydrate, same thing. You get a high for a little bit and then a crash. And then you eat protein, for example, whey protein or eggs, then you get, eggs have some protein. Then you get a more sustained energy. And then if you eat fats, again, runny eggs and avocados and such, then you get a much longer form of energy. And if you take minerals, it's this really, really, really subtle, long energy compared to all those other forms of food, right? So that's a really wonderful point. Thank you, William. Vivekananda also didn't, neither Tibetans. Very good point. Possibly finding personal dosha could help. I've seen online tests. Yeah, Damascus, thank you. Online dosha can be very helpful. I've talked to yogis that said that really, really helped them quite a bit. Oh, yeah. I nearly died trying to be vegan. I really believe it. Absolutely. Veganism, you're trying to be so strict with yourself. It's a great way to get sick because you've got to do massive supplementation if you want to be vegan. So just keep that in mind. Your body absolutely needs vitamins and minerals. There's just no way around it if you want to be healthy. So, yeah. Sergio, hi Forrest. Lately when doing Om Japa in the base chakra, I feel a sensation near the medulla and the top rear brain. A lightness, pleasantness, like something activating. This returns at different moments through the day, on a walk or driving. Can you comment on this? Yes. So that is the roll-up of consciousness. So this will happen to the yogi. You clean the path, you clean the path, you clean the path, you clean the path, and then you hit one chakra, and sometimes it's the first chakra, or it might be the third chakra, or you might hit the heart, and the whole thing just goes bam, right up, right up. And so you hit one and it just goes bam, it hits right up at the top. It's like, what's going on? Yeah, you cleaned the path. You did it. And it doesn't mean it will always be that way, but right now it's happening, right? The path is clean and some or a lot. So it might be some, it might be a lot, it might be everything just rushes up to the top because the pathway is clean. And so we can call that a kind of a first knot sensation, that it's coming up into the brain. Really beautiful. Also, is the freeze response happening when my body feels like an outer shell? Absolutely. 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 That is the freeze response. This outer shell is forming on parts of my body during HRV breathing. Yes, absolutely. That is the freeze response. Sergio, well done. Amazing, amazing, amazing progress. Well done. Absolutely. Yes, that is the freeze response, and that is the roll-up of consciousness, which is happening to you. And so don't just notice, oh my God, the energy came up. What does your consciousness feel like? Well, if I go back and I think about, well, I was worrying about this and I was worrying about that, and now my consciousness has risen and I think about those things and I go, it's not a big deal. Why was I making such a big deal? It's nothing. And now you know your consciousness has risen up into the upper nerve system, into the brain. Really, really, really big deal. Beautiful. Oh my God. I'm like,
oh, thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, when it really started, like the shell-like really started when I had COVID a year ago. And so I was kind of locked in our other, in another room, separated from my wife and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm really going to buckle down here on all the little details that you've shared. One of them being without my shirt on and not having anything against my back. And that's really when things really kind of took off, when I started feeling this shell-like, when I started.
That's so fantastic. That's so, you kind of clipped out. I don't know if that was on purpose, but it was absolutely amazing. Isn't that funny? So COVID was a blessing in disguise. Isn't that amazing? So awesome. Super proud of you. It's so big. and then Kim.
Sorry about that. I got knocked off, but anyway, thank you.
Absolutely perfect. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I just found, well, yeah, I guess I did. I just found that I kind of took like a quantum leap just by, meditating with my shirt off. I didn't realize how much the sensation on the skin was affecting me, like with it, just having a shirt on or my back up against a chair for comfort levels, partially because my lower back would get tense or all these things. But once I just did these little steps, like keeping, my hips slightly elevated above the knees, putting a pillow on all these little like comfort things. And then when I guess the freeze response came upon me, I was like, there was no pain at all. It's like everything, even if I felt tense in my neck, it's like, oh my goodness. And I would, or do, able to sit for such long periods of time. And I've tried sitting for long periods of times in other retreats and stuff. And it's just the whole time my brain is just fighting, the tension and the pain, and all these other people are sitting around. I'm going, okay, why am I so tense? So anyway, um, what you have taught with posture, just those things have just been huge. And the HRV breathing, of course, is just absolutely a game changer, But anyway, that's all for now. And thanks so much.
So perfect. So perfect. So amazing. Yeah, you got to be comfortable so that you can let go, right? And so, putting a pillow at the base of the spine, making sure that props you up a little bit. I like to put a pillow right in front so that my arms rest like this on the pillow, so they're up, and it keeps my upper body up a little bit. All of that is fantastic, and what a great testimony, and very, very helpful, I think. Beautiful. Really, thank you very much for telling us all of that. It was perfect. Very cool. And it's such a big deal, right? Because you want to let go of the body, and yet you've got this shirt on, which is stimulating the edge of the skin, reminding you that you have a body, and you're trying to let go of that. So you take the shirt off and the temperature is right, and boom, it's so much easier to let go of the edge of your own body. And you figured it out. Beautiful.
And I found that after crossing that bridge, that now if I do, if I am wearing a shirt, especially during the winter time, I was like, okay, well, I'm keeping now I still go into that state because I've already, experienced it. So now my body and, my brain is accustomed to that, so I can slip into that, more easily.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
can I follow up just really quickly?
Yeah.
So I'm doing all these, I guess, doing, the doobie do, but the being, crossing over to that place where I guess I'm getting a full absorption or whatever. I feel like I'm very relaxed. My body is feeling all these sensations or lack of sensation, but I only got a glimpse one time when I was getting acupuncture, where I was able to lay there and I was doing HRV breathing, and I started going into this place, which I was assuming maybe it was non-dual or something. But then the acupuncturist came in and interrupted that, and I haven't had any of that. And so how do you cross over to the being? I feel like I'm in the doing, and then very relaxed,
Yeah.
and then I kind of go into no mind,
Uh-huh.
but I'm still, aware. I'm not going into this
Absolutely.
non-dual state, I guess it is.
Absolutely. So I'm working on a full training to answer that question, and so it'll be very much about absorption. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes of that, but just understand there's a lot. I'm really gonna flesh this out. But the thing that you're asking is
Mhm.
what what do we put our minds on once we're in that state? So here's an example. My guru, Ashok, would just stay at the medulla sometimes, not all the time, but he would stay at the medulla. And just become very, very silent. And he would just bathe in that silence until it became a samadhi. It became a non-dual state. So that's one category, right? When you lose the edge of your body, Lahiri Baba said the Om vibration and losing the edge of your body, he said, this is the easiest way to get into a samadhi. And he's absolutely right. Expansion is the first layer of the right brain. And so when you lose the edge of your body and you might feel yourself in the air around you, well, you've just become that much spacious. And you're not this much spacious yet, right? But you're that much spacious. And you can soak in that. You can be the holy potato in that. And just soak that in and let it expand and let it expand. And so that's spaciousness. Or you might hear or you might feel the vibration of the Om. And if you can feel that just a little bit in the air around you, and then a little more and a little more as you lose the edge of your body, this is a very easy way to get into samadhi. And even if you don't feel it, let's say I don't feel that, but I do feel myself in the air around myself. Can I feel that everything is kind of vibrating just a tiny, tiny bit? Well, that's it. That is the vibration. That is the Om, and you're doing it. So that's a second category. So we have silence, we have expansion, then we have intelligence. And when I say intelligence, I mean the presence of the divine. So when you're sitting in meditation and you feel like God is with you, maybe you feel like God is above you or behind you or to the left wonderfully in the angel exercise, the divine is with you, right? And you feel that and you feel that. And it's as if you keep going up, it's almost as if there are layers to that intelligence. And this is what the Hebrews noticed, and they said there are 10 angels. And they're just, and Jacob, wonderful, beautiful Jacob, he said I had a dream, and in my dream there were angels going up into heaven and angels coming down. And that's a description of those layers of intelligence of the divine, right? So there is a format to creation, and it's actually a format of the intelligence of God. And so it's as if you are climbing that scaffold into heaven. And so if you feel the intelligence of God and you soak into that, I feel the presence of God in me, all around me, above me, maybe to the left. I'm just feeling that and feeling that and feeling and soaking into that. Now you're soaking into the presence, the intelligence of the divine. And so that's, how many is that? That's 3. And then if you put your mind on the nothing, on the void, it's just nothing. There's nothing at all. I wrote to Ashok, I said, I'm in the box of my skull. There's no body. I'm just in the box of my skull. And he goes, there's no box, nothing. There should be nothing at all. And I'll never forget it. It was so funny. And so that's the void. That's the nothingness. And you can feel it. You can sense it in the center of the spiritual eye, that nothingness. And you can put your mind on that and just soak it in and soak it in and soak it in. And it's as if you put your mind on it while you're in clarity, right? You put your mind on it and you might feel like that much of your mind is embracing the nothingness. But we want to embrace it 95%. 95% of our entire being needs to hold that nothingness. And that's the critical mass, like 95%. That's how much we need. And then it will suck you right in. And so it's kind of like a prayer. Absorption is kind of like a prayer. So you pray and you pray and you pray, and then God answers. And it's the same thing with absorption. I absorb, and then I reach a critical mass, that 95%, and then boom, I am that. I am the nothingness. And so is that 4? So you have the bottom of your mind, that's really the silence. So you can just absorb into the mind itself. Just watch the mind and watch the mind and watch the mind. And you reach a point where you can just watch the mind, and the beta brainwave will be silent while you're watching it. And then you'll only see the subconscious, and it will kind of bring up an idea of a thought. And sometimes they're kind of weird. When you look at them, you're like, that's so weird, because it's not a whole thought. And then it will fall away because the beta brainwave is not grabbing it, because I'm watching the beta brainwave. I'm watching it. And so it stays quiet while I'm watching it. And then another subconscious thought will arise, and it will fall away. These weird proto half thoughts arise and fall away, right? And that's an absorption into the mind itself, and it leads to silence. And so that's part of what Ashok was doing. He was going into silence in the medulla. So if I try to do that without the Om Japa, without the roll-up of consciousness, well, it's quite difficult. But I do it after the roll-up of consciousness, after the tranquil breath, the freeze response, and the roll-up of consciousness. I've got all of that, and then I attempt these absorptions. Well, it's, oh my God, so much easier. And so that's 4 categories, right? We have expansion, intelligence, nothingness, and the mind itself. We could call it the bottom of the mind. We could call it silence. So that's the 4th category. There's one more thing, and that is light and bliss. And you might not see the light. It's more of a perceiving the light and perceiving bliss. So if you see that, or you perceive that, or you feel that, or you know that, and you soak in that, then that's a 5th category, isn't it? And so those are all places to put yourself. What am I putting myself on? These are all immaterial meditations. And so I'm done with the body, because the body is frozen. It's frozen out. It's out of the way, right? I'm in the roll-up of consciousness. I don't have to worry about all of this. All that work is done. I'm in the tranquil breath. I don't have to worry about the load of the breath. The breath is not bothering me. And so now it's just an immaterial form of the divine. What am I actually trying to do? I am attempting to wrap my mind and my heart and my soul, but easy enough to say, I'm just attempting to wrap my mind around God. What is God? And so we have these categories to kind of begin to answer that. So I'm just stretching and stretching. It's like, God, I don't know what that is. God, I don't know what that is, but I'm stretching and stretching and stretching myself. And then oh my God, I wrap my mind around what is God. And boom, I'm in a samadhi. Or boom, I'm in an absorption so blissful and so profound. I don't even care. Samadhi who? I don't care. I care enough to look down, but that's it. I'm going to go back into the bliss, and I'm just going to soak in that samadhi who? I don't know. I'm just here for the bliss, man. I'm here. So it's like, you're on a date, and nobody says on the date, are we going home? Are we going home? Are we going are we going to kiss? We better kiss. That's a great way to ruin your date, right? And so you don't want to be in your absorption and go, where's the kiss? Are we going to have the kiss? Because we got to have the kiss. Everybody says I have to have the kiss, right? That's a great way to ruin your date, right? But if you're there and you're with Divine Mother, you're with the holiness that you're perceiving inside of yourself, and you go, holy guacamole, this is amazing. Oh my God. And now you're in that perfect reverence, which just keeps expanding the absorption. So I put it in my book at the very end of Mastering Meditation. I explain, I was in this meditation, And suddenly I had a samadhi. And I came out of the samadhi, and sometimes you're in these states, you're like, I always remember the voice of Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam. What the hell was that? That's the kind of moment that I had. I came out of the samadhi. I'm like, what was that? And I'm just trying to put words on it to describe it. These things were not there. It was completely non-dual. But I'm in my left brain. I'm back in my personality. I'm trying to describe what was that. I know it's a samadhi. It was a completely non-dual. I was not there. Forrest was not there, right? I mean, Forrest was completely merged into what was going on. And I came out and I tried to describe it to myself. And I'm like, it was as if I was with the angels, and the angels were singing adoration to God, and they were God. I was God, and I was singing this glorious adoration of God. And that's the kind of reverence which will take you over in these absorptions. And that's what we're looking for, because that's 95% of you just being, oh, whoa. And that's the perfect attitude, right? To the higher self, to the gamma brainwave, to the superconscious mind, just like, oh my God. That's the perfect attitude. And that will get you to 95%. So you're looking at those 5 categories of absorption, expansion, and intelligence, and nothingness, and the mind itself, which turns into silence, and then bliss and light. And you just want to be in those so much that it's like, wow, right? We don't have words. Like, how many words for wow do we have, right? We've got like just a few. Just amazing. But that's what you want. And then you're overwhelmed, and then you get sucked in.
Wow.
Was that helpful?
I said, yeah, wow, that's a beautiful, thorough explanation. I mean, it gave me chills the whole time when you were explaining all these things, and beautiful about the angels and the glory. So thank you so much. And I won't be asking, where's the kiss? Where's the kiss?
Perfect.
Easier said than done.
Yes. What about the kiss, man? Oh, man, you come out and you go, oh, man, where was the kiss? I didn't have the kiss. Everybody says there's a kiss in here somewhere. Yeah, it'll come. Stay on the date. It will come.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sergio.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Karan, greetings for us. Recently got to many thoughts only while doing Navi, and it drops after Navi. I get too many thoughts while I'm doing Navi, and it drops after Navi. Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's okay. You might be slightly bored with the Navi, so try speeding it up. Because it's okay. It's a preliminary exercise, and sometimes you're doing the preliminary exercise. You're like, really? Do I have to do the preliminary exercise? And I was talking with Ashok one time, and I'm thinking in my mind, why do we have to do this Maha Mudra at the end of the meditation? Like, I really have to do that? And this is, slightly, I didn't voice it because I would be embarrassed to say that to him, but I could think it, right? Well, he read my mind, and he goes, look, we only do the Maha Mudra at the end so you don't trip over your own feet when you're coming out of meditation. I'm like, oh my God, he read my mind. Whoops, I should not say these things to myself. Okay. Thank you for this answer. So it's okay when you're doing a preliminary exercise going, do I really have to do this preliminary exercise? Yes, it really helps. I promise it does. But you can speed it up. So speed up the Navi. Just go Om, 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 Om into that third chakra. Try and speed up the Oms just a little bit, okay? And see if that helps. See, and it can become more powerful And one more tip to make it more powerful, feel that the pressure from your mind. So the thumbs, these are just to help your mind. Like, where am I putting my focus? That's just to help your mind. And the pressure coming in with the thumbs, again, is just to help your mind to give it the direction, the proper direction. But here's a tip. Bring it in and up. Bring your mind in and up. And that will make the, like a tiny little hook, okay? Just in and up. And that will help to stimulate the digestive response, which is already happening just thinking about it. But it will flush out that ventral vagal channel, that front channel, faster. So try that out. In and up, and speed up the ohms and see if that helps you. Amy Bender, I'm curious about timeline therapy. When you get rid of emotions, do you still feel them in the future? I did the timeline trainings and felt the emotions go away, but I notice I get little flickers of emotions here and there, and then they are gone. Mostly sadness and sometimes feeling triggered with a certain situation. And so it's the timeline therapy. So first of all, you can do a session with yourself or with somebody who's doing the timeline therapy with you. And very often you will take one big emotion off, like, for example, anger, and then right underneath that will come sadness. And so the person will be like, well, there's still something there. Well, is it anger? Because we're working on anger. And they go, oh, no, it's not anger. The anger's gone. But now I'm feeling this other thing, which is sadness. Yeah. So the anger was covering the sadness. And so you take the anger off and the sadness might arise. And it's the same thing if there are multiple gestalts of, for example, sadness or depression. So I might take off one layer, which I call sadness, and then my subconscious had a secondary layer, which it calls depression. And so I might take off one and then find that another is there. Or same thing with anger. I might have anger, what I call anger, and then have a secondary gestalt that I might call pissed off. Like the subconscious might name different emotions as separate gestalts. And so we don't know exactly how you are labeling it. So it's not completely universal. It comes down to the individual and how their subconscious is organizing the gestalts inside of you. So you're noticing that you're very, very cleared out compared to where you were. And it's not that you can't ever feel these feelings ever again. That would be a limiting of your flexibility. And we want an expansion of your flexibility. And so instead of being chained to these emotions, you're more flexible, right? And so we've taken this huge burden off and you're getting these tiny little flickers. And that sounds very, very good and very normal. And so you said mostly sadness. And so I would do another session with that sadness and ask yourself exactly what is this what do I call this? And go through that one again and see if that changes things for you. But it's really just a dive into your subconscious and understanding, what's in there. And it's all of these, layers, one on top of the other. So we're uncovering one, and then we uncover another, and then we uncover another, and then we get down to oh my God, I'm pretty clean. And it's never quite perfect, but it gets quite clean compared to where we used to be. And that's what we're looking for. So Amy, fantastic job. That, you had this stuff and now it's just these tiny little flickers. So beautiful, so huge, and well done. Charles says, thank you, beautiful answer. And it put me right there. Awesome. Suba, left brain, much needed to file tax returns. That's exactly right. Oh, yes, we need it. All right. Linda says, hello, Forrest. When doing the heart rate variability resonant breathing with the app, at the beginning of a meditation session, I don't hold my breath at the top. In-breath flows into out-breath. Exactly right. But then when I'm doing the Om Japa in the chakras, like I've explained, do I hold the breath briefly at the top before exhaling through the chakras down to the base? Yes, that is correct. And that's what I taught you. Excuse me. The HRV resonance is very, very clinical. And we're dividing out. So pranayama, did I say it right? Pranayama. When we're doing that, it's a combination usually of long breathing, which is HRV resonance, and then a breath hold, which is blood pressure variability resonance. So pranayama traditionally is putting those two together. And that's a little hard. That's a little bit complicated. And HRV resonance is separating only the long breathing. So when you make the breath continuous, you're only doing the HRV resonance. And it's simpler. And that's why people do this, and it works very, very fast. Whereas when you try and combine the two, you will find very often that it makes it more complicated. And so a beginning yogi will take a long time to master both of those at once. And so I noticed when I was teaching at the very beginning, if they were putting a breath hold and they didn't make the continuous breathing, which is part of the instruction that I got from modeling Dr. Gervitz, if you didn't make it continuous, sometimes they would find a way to fall out of the HRV resonance. But as soon as you make sure the breath is continuous, you've really, really boxed your body into a corner, and it has to do HRV resonance. And that's what we want. And then you can later expand on that, and you can do the breath holds as well. And it works like a dream. And even just a little breath hold. Maybe we don't feel up to the long breath holds. Yeah, please don't if you're not ready. Just do the little tiny breath holds. And then when you feel good, you do that much more. And that's fantastic. And very often that will be enough to get into the tranquil breath. And that's all we're looking for. Tranquil breath, freeze response, roll up of consciousness. Now I'm ready to absorb. Beautifully, beautifully. So yeah, absolutely, Linda, you have it correct. And so only the HRV, so Kriya, for example, is more than HRV resonance. But if you don't have the HRV resonance, the Kriya is not correct. So that's the first thing that you have to make sure that you've established as a Kriya yogi. And so you have entire lineages which are not doing that. They're not aware of that. And so their meditations are very much hit, miss, 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 hit, miss, 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 miss. But when you make sure that you have the HRV resonance, then it will always be a hit every single time. It might not be as deep as you were hoping, but it will be a hit every single time. And that creates your baseline, your base of your meditation, which allows for the further progress. Beautiful question. Okay. Pedro, you have your hand up.
Oops. No, now you can hear
I can
me?
hear you. Very good.
Okay. I can hear you fine, but your video for me is chopping, so can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, that's my internet. I have to fix my internet. Thank you, Pedro.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is about like when we start speaking about the progressions and where we want to go and the like deep desires and the connections and samadhis and everything, like it always makes me very excited. Like it's something that you can feel a desire deep inside. But then there's like always this voice that comes at like, nah, you cannot do this. Like it's impossible for you. Like other people can do it. It's fine, but you're always doing something wrong, or like you're built differently and it's not going to work for you. And it's weird because like in a way, I can see that I'm making progressions, and like in short times practicing what you teach, I already get in some deep states, deeper than I ever got in meditations. But there's a part of me that actually believes that voice, like, okay, yeah, I cannot do this. Okay, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And it's weird, like, so I wanted to ask, like, is it normal? Just like ignore this and keep doing,
Yeah.
or anything to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. And I noticed this quite a bit when I used to live in the ashram, and it would actually plague the entire community. So at first I thought, well, it's just me. Like I want all these things, and when you want them, right, and you read these fantastical stories, and you start putting these states up on a pedestal, and you're worshiping them, and that's good, right? Because you have a goal, and you're falling in love with these yogic states. So that adoration is good, but the putting them on a pedestal is not so good, because then you put it on, then it's harder than you thought, and then you put the up higher, and then it's harder than you thought, and then so you put it up higher, and pretty soon it's this just, it seems like it's so far away that you've put it so high on a pedestal that now you've made it mentally impossible. And so I try to begin with myself to find ways to pull that apart mentally, because I realized this was a kind of yogic psychosis. And so is it normal? It's absolutely normal, because I was in an ashram and it was an epidemic of I can't do it. Everybody else can do it, but I can't do it. Well, first of all, that's impossible, right? Because if everybody else can do it, what's so special about me? And if everybody thinks that, well, then something's definitely wrong, right? But yeah, it's a kind of, it's a limiting decision is what it is. And so you can use timeline therapy on limiting decisions. That's one thing that we can do. But you can start to mentally erode that problem in your mind. So here's a fun question. This is an NLP question, and it won't make sense, but I want you to try to answer it. So what wouldn't happen if you couldn't not fall into samadhi?
What would happen if I couldn't go to samadhi?
What wouldn't
If it-
happen if you could not fall into a samadhi? What wouldn't,
It's like a,
it's a riddle. Yeah, it's a
it's
loop.
a-
What wouldn't happen if you couldn't not fall into a deep absorption?
yeah, it's like a three no's that
Yeah.
equals a yes.
What wouldn't happen if you couldn't not fall into bliss? What wouldn't happen if you couldn't not fall into bliss? I just want you to think about that. So when you have these doubts, I want you to ask yourself that question about what you are doubting. So there are some people that do therapy on here. And so I want you to throw that. When you have a client, it's not going to break the problem completely, but it begins to unravel the problem when you ask that. So you take the problem and you say, what wouldn't happen if you couldn't not do that thing? It's a crazy question, and it's designed to linguistically break up the problem. So we're already unraveling the problem. Just contemplating that, you are already unraveling the problem linguistically. It's an amazing thing. And so when we put it really up high on a pedestal and we say samadhi is this really big thing, well, then it gets quite difficult. And to be sure, it's not an easy dip in the pool, or everybody would be dipping in the pool, and they're not. In fact, Ian McGilchrist came to Jill Taylor, who had that profound experience while she was in the hospital, right? She was shoved into her right brain. And Ian McGilchrist is doing an interview with her, and she goes, he goes, well, you know, all of this is very nice, but I don't think that you can do what you're saying. Like Ian McGilchrist is basically saying, which is, he's so amazingly knowledgeable on the right brain, but he's not talking about what we're talking about. We're talking about identifying with the right brain. And so he tells her, I don't think that you can do what you're saying can be done. And Jill turns to him without missing a beat, and she goes, oh, sir, that's the difference between you and me. I've been there and you haven't. So not an easy thing. Even Ian McGilchrist isn't quite sure about that, right? And so it takes a while. It takes a lifetime, and it takes a lifetime of dedication, and yet it's only your right brain. If we're just thinking about it as it expresses in the body, it's only your right brain. That's all it is. So I don't think you're going to lose your right brain. I don't think you're going to lose that opportunity. It's right there. It's inside of you. It's supporting you continuously. There is not one moment of your life it is not supporting you. It is always behind you. Without that superconscious mind, you could not function. You could not tie your shoes. You could not anything. The superconscious mind is supporting everything. Look, I'm lifting my hand. I could not do that without the superconscious mind functioning behind me. I'm speaking to you in a rational way. There is no way I could do that without the inspiration of the superconscious mind. Even just a normal conversation cannot take place without the superconscious mind being there. If you want proof, go look at the AI. There is no super. For the AI to do what it's doing, it needs multiple functions, and it's not even conscious. The AI is a chat bot. That's all. That's a very simple way to think about AI. It is simply a chat bot. And so it's learning to copy. It's fantastic at mimicking, right? It's not good at actual wisdom, actual understanding. It takes so many layers to create your consciousness. And without the superconscious mind, there is no function. We'd all be dead. So it's right there. It's your right brain. It's functioning all of the time. Even when you sleep, it's 100% there all the time. There's a wonderful story about he was a Tai Chi master. He was studying under another Tai Chi master who was Chen Manqing, and this Wolfie Lowenthal, that was his name, and he tells this amazing story. He's doing Tai Chi for years and years and years, and it built in all of these automatic responses in his subconscious, right? And so he has this is never do this, by the way. Never have something heavy or even light hanging over your head when you're sleeping. That's bad feng shui. Feng shui is just common sense. You don't have heavy things hanging over your head when you're sleeping. So he's got some kind of mantle over his head, and he's sleeping there with his girlfriend, and the mantle falls off and is going to crush both of their skulls. And Wolfie Lowenthal wakes up and he's like this, holding the mantle. He was 100% asleep, and he woke up holding the mantle. So if his subconscious was not trained, he wouldn't have been able to do that. But if the superconscious mind had not told him to do something, he absolutely wouldn't have been able to enable the subconscious skill which he had built over years. Just an amazing, he woke up, he's holding the mantle. He didn't wake up and catch it. He woke up holding it. It's just amazing. And that's your superconscious mind looking after you 100% all of the time. So let's see, how else? Do you have the freeze response? Do you ever get into the freeze response, Pedro?
Yeah, I'm starting to like I can feel the freeze starting,
Good.
but it's not like a deep freeze as you talk about, but I can feel it starting and I can feel the consciousness kind of rising. Sometimes I can feel it, but I'm starting to notice
So
what is what.
if you have the freeze response, you also have some tranquil breath. Those two go hand in hand. And now you're feeling the consciousness rise. That means you're beginning. This is so subtle. You go to the Kundalini people, you talk about this consciousness rising. They might know, they might not know. Most of them will not be able to talk about consciousness rising. You are. That's how subtle you have become by trying to understand that over and over again. So you have already the 3 essentials of Kriya Yoga. And you, my friend, are over halfway through the Yoga Sutras. Do you understand? So once you have those 3 things, you begin to enter into clarity. And when you begin to enter into clarity, absorption will start to arise. And you can start to put yourself on those 5 categories that I mentioned today. If you missed it, you can go back once I record this, it's already recording. Once I publish the video, okay? 5 categories of immaterial meditation. You can start to put yourself on those. But you're already halfway. And you're young. So Lesta's over here. She's 81 and she's worried about it. And she's going to look at you and go, Pedro, you're young. Stop complaining. You're going to get this for sure. Right? So you're doing fantastic. You're over halfway. How long have you been studying with me? How long has it been?
Yeah, like I do meditations, like random meditations
How
for
long have you been studying
quite a
with
few
me?
years, like 7 years, but with you, like 5 to 6 months
6 months.
with you.
5-6 months. Already in the freeze response. Man. Okay, Pedro, come over. I'm going to slap you around because you're already halfway there. You have nothing to complain about. 5 months. 5 months and you're in the freeze response. Absolutely amazing. So your job is to soak in that freeze response. Keep soaking in that freeze response. Just really soak it in. And it gets blissful. It gets wonderful. Like they were talking about that my whole body is, Sergio was saying my whole body freezes and I don't have any aches. I don't have any pains. It's just absolutely wonderful. And it starts to become blissful. So keep going. It gets better and just soak in that. You're already halfway and it's only been 5 months. So what if another 5 months and you start to go into absorption? Are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah, it's like you want it to happen, but when it starts to happen, it's like, whoa, it's a lot.
So if you start going into the non-dual in 6 or 7 or 8 months, are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah. Can I just say one last
Sure.
thing? Yeah. So like I was pondering about that, what you said, that you can find the bliss on the states, and like trying to find it, and then like 2 weeks ago I went to the dentist to remove the last tooth. I don't know how to
Wisdom.
say in English,
Uh-huh.
like the last four tooth. I went to remove them. Yeah, and then I was like there in the most uncomfortable position, like he trying to take off the tooth, and I was like, maybe I would try to find some bliss here. Is it possible? And I was like trying to relax, 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 and then suddenly I found it. Like it was kind of blissful, and I was like trying not to laugh while he was taking out the tooth, because like if you can find this here, you can find it anywhere.
There you go.
It was just a little bit, but it was very
That's
funny.
very funny. That's so fantastic. Well, Pedro, 5 months, you're already encountering the freeze response. I'm super proud of you, and I think you're doing fantastic. And so you got to get ready because absorption is going to come, and I hope you're ready for it. So I hope that's okay, that the absorption is coming your way it's speeding at you like a Mack truck. And so you've got to be ready for all of the kisses from Divine Mother in absorption. Okay, so you got to be ready for that. And just relax. Keep going on the date with the freeze response. Okay, keep going on the date with the freeze response. Keep all your dates with the freeze response. And it's going to grow into clarity. And that's going to grow into absorption. And that's going to grow into the non-dual state. So it's all coming together, and you're doing fantastic. And it is an epidemic because, and that's what's so powerful of understanding how it works in the body, how it works in the brain, is you take it out of the la la land and you bring it down to earth and you make it practical. And that's all we're doing. We're just making it practical and real. And it's very, very real. And you're already more than halfway. And you're at the tipping point. Like getting up to this point is sometimes the hard part. But now it starts to grow, and it starts to grow. And like you're finding the bliss, it's hard not to laugh. And then you're in life, and it's hard not to laugh at the inappropriate moments because everything is slightly hilarious. At least that's what I find. I was on a...
You're not alone, Pedro.
Siddhant understands. Perfect. Sia, you have your... Is that...
Awesome.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Sia, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, actually, I just what you just said to Pedro, actually, it's really very much relate to my situation. I've been with you for, I don't know, a couple of years. I still never had samadhi, but now I finally learned I have to let go of that. And I just said what you said is absolutely amazing. And I just, from bottom of my heart, appreciate, because now, I mean, this is probably, it'd be useful for Pedro, because I look back my life, it just changed just so much. I mean, I might not have samadhi, but just so, I would say most of the time I wake up in the morning, I just feel so happy, and I don't really know why I'm so happy. And now I'm learning to do this timeline therapy. My God, I just absolutely fall in love. And to see how people change in front of my eyes, I just absolutely loved it. And I just really want to say thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
And now I don't know if I can talk because I'm about to cry.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Same. I'm already crying.
But it's a good cry. It's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, we got more questions, and I didn't get to them. Okay. Let me do 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up, okay? And I just adore you guys. I really love you guys too. Thank you, Sia, for that. That was really that's what it becomes, right? That's what it becomes. It It becomes so big and so wonderful that you fall out of worrying about a certain label or state. And that's exactly as it should be. Jack says, can you describe how the sensation of the roll-up feels? So one of the ways I've described that is, when you fall in love, when you have a crush, and you're walking around on cloud 9, that's a roll-up of consciousness into the heart because you're so in love in that moment, right? And it's really a projection. A crush is really a projection. It's not real love. But you're projecting onto that person that I think that they might be perfect for me, and it causes all this rise up into your heart, and you feel like you're walking on cloud 9, and the worries that you had before, you cannot associate with them as you could before. And then you come crashing down, you come crashing back into the problems because you didn't do the Om Japa, you didn't clean up, it was just a crush. But that, for a moment, was a rise up into the heart. And that's the beginning of understanding the roll-up of consciousness. And so you come up into the throat, you encounter wisdom, you come up into the medulla, you encounter some knowing or a download or some expansion, or you feel, the crown of your head open up and you start to notice expansion. You notice you're in the air around you, but it all starts right here in the heart where you notice this roll-up of consciousness into the heart. And it doesn't have to be this big, boisterous love. It can be very, very subtle. In fact, that's perfect. But I will feel this subtle rise of energy. It will enter into my heart. And at that moment, we don't always remember to do this, but I can look back on my worries and go, I don't care. I've risen above them. I've risen above it. And then solutions will come to you sometimes. And that's a download. Like there's a solution that comes because you're in so much wisdom and clarity and knowing from the right brain that it washes through you and you get a download. And so that's the beginning of understanding the roll-up. That's a good place to start. Damascus says, as I sip a soda, I'm human sometimes. Very good. Okay, Ben has to go. That's great. Okay, so hi, Forrest. I have a question about Kriya Yoga and entertainment. How does one find the limits of what's good for oneself in terms of entertainment? I know you have a story from your time as a monk when the other monks looked down on you. Well, it wasn't that they were like, nobody really knew what I was reading. I don't think. I can't remember. So it was very private. It was in my room. Nobody knew. But I would read fantasy and sci-fi. I just love fantasy and sci-fi. And so, that's The Hobbit, that's the Lord of the Rings. And you know who else liked the Lord of the Rings? But what it was they said, you're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to read any of that. So I was a rebel monk and I was reading science fiction and fantasy and along with a lot of other educational books. And I just love it. I just love it. To this day, I love some of that fantasy. One of my old-time favorites is The Riddle Master of Head. It's a trilogy, Air of Sea and Fire and Harpist in the Wind. I just adore that trilogy. It's a fantastic story. And it's a wonderful... And so somebody told me they thought that they couldn't read that stuff. I'm like, oh no, it's fantastic. Because when you go into a story and you identify with the hero in that moment, you are not yourself. You have become the hero. And so you're learning disidentification as you read a good story and you get involved in it. For that little moment, you're identified with the hero and it causes you to disidentify with yourself. And you do that over and over again. And you'll notice, excuse me, people who read or write a lot of fantasy or science fiction, they're slightly more relaxed than a lot of other people because they've done all of this disidentification in their whole lives, and they start to see the large chunks of life that look like their stories that they read, and they start to associate their life with different parts of a story which are very archetypal. And so it becomes a kind of deep learning. It's very interesting. And I studied Blake Snyder and his method of understanding the sections of story. And that's just brilliant. And I took his class. I said, you know, this reminds me of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the change states which she talked about. And so what Blake Snyder did is he said all of these change states, he didn't study Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but that parallel is definitely there. And he said there's actually, in every story, there are 15 key moments. And then he wrote all of that out. It's just absolutely brilliant. Because when we're telling a story, we're really talking about life. And so when you read a very good story, you're reading about life, and it can inform you. And it doesn't mean it will be the deepest of deepest understandings, but in a good movie or a good story, there is always a good understanding, and you can take something away, and that's valuable. So, but you're talking about recently, friends recommended watching The Walking Dead, and frankly, it was not my cup of Kriya. I bet. So I kind of understand where the monks were coming from, even though my example is a bit extreme and their opinion lacked nuance. Furthermore, this Walking Dead experience made me realize that I seek beauty, and I find it hard to find profound, moving beauty in entertainment, except for music. I can easily find beauty, moving, mind-blowing music. Absolutely. So I'm looking for fiction books and perhaps movies or series that are really beautiful. And maybe you and the community have suggestions. Yeah, if anybody has suggestions for her, when I post this video, feel free to give us your good suggestions about a good movie. So sometimes when I'm talking, I talk about The Matrix. The Matrix is kind of dark, but it's such an interesting idea that you're living in a video, in kind of a computer program, right? And they were starting with that idea when they wrote that story. There's another funny movie, which is the Truman Show. And the Truman Show, look at the Truman Show and then look at the life of Buddha. So Buddha was, sheltered by his father, who was a king. And so he didn't know what was real. And that's really what happened to Truman as well. So there's some parallels between the Truman Show, Jim Carrey, and the life of the Buddha, which is fun. That's a fun movie. But yeah, definitely don't watch horror. Don't watch The Walking Dead. Probably not very good for you at all. All of the horror is based off of, what's that story about the Minotaur, who is, you're lost in a maze? And all of those are based on choosing something bad in your life. And that's what Blake said. So all horror stories are based on that one archetypal story, that we've chosen something very bad and there are consequences to that. That's every horror story. And so you'll find some, and I'm in no way encouraging you to watch horror. I'm just explaining it. So if you watch a horror movie or a story, which I don't recommend at all, there is a saving grace, and some of the heroes will choose the right thing and they will escape the ultimate demise. And the ones that keep doing the wrong choice, they end up very badly in the story, of course, right? And so that's really that's the archetype of the horror story. But again, I don't recommend any of that at all. Not good for you. You want to, it was Brother Premomoy who said, I'm very cautious about what I put into my subconscious. And I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. Definitely only watch movies which you are convinced are going to uplift you. And some people will say, oh, well, that's naive. And I don't think it's naive at all. It's absolutely fantastic because you're being selective about what you put into your subconscious. And that's extremely worthwhile for your own life. So that's a very, very well informed. In fact, life is difficult enough. We don't need to see a bunch of junk. And TV is always, a TV program is always going to be lower in quality, because a sitcom, I mean, the Friends sitcom was kind of amazing. The Big Bang Theory was a great sitcom that was very funny. But most sitcoms are, the way that you can run a sitcom is that you never change the characters. They never really grow. They're always the same, and that's how you can have episode after episode after episode. But a movie, the hero has to transform. That's what a movie is based on. It's the hero's journey in one form or another. And the hero should always be learning something. Otherwise, we will not identify with the movie if the hero never changes. So all of the great movies, especially, I think the 80s were a great time for the movies. I think the 90s as well. And occasionally we'll have a really good movie nowadays, but not always. But that idea of the transformation of the hero was always emphasized when Hollywood was at its heyday. It's still there, but it's not as emphasized as much, right? But movies can be great. Science fiction, you've got to find something which is good for you. I think it's fantastic. And again, you're causing disidentification when you really get into the story. And so I told this yogini who had sacrificed reading, she loves sci-fi, and she sacrificed reading sci-fi for 40 years because they told her it wasn't good. I'm like, no, read sci-fi, go have fun. And she started reading, she just had a ball. And of course she's going into samadhi. And so there's your proof. It's totally okay. It's fantastic. And then Bruce, I have a question for Saturday. Not sure. Let's see. Navi Kriya is very effective in dissipating energy forms that manifest as fear-based emotions. Is there a technology practice to dissipate archetypal thought forms such as desire? I have used the letting go surrender process in the past, but that requires a differentiation of the archetypal form within my daily life, sometimes to let go, surrender, rather than at an energetic level as in Navi. Is there a way to do that for negative emotions? Thank you and blessings. Yes, absolutely. That's the rest of the Om Japa. And so if you have, so desire is usually associated with the first and second chakra. And so if you just Om, and you can stay in those chakras, just Om into those. And there's one thing I find to be helpful. When there's an issue in this chakra, sometimes I will Om right below it and then right above it, and the up and above and below the chakra. So like in the chakra below and the chakra above, and I'll hit all three of those, and I'll just stay in one and Om for a while, and then I'll stay in the next one and Om for a while. And if you feel the feeling, then you can Om directly into how you feel the feeling. And that's Kriya therapy. Ashok told me to do that all the time. It's very, very helpful. Now you're talking about, so that's the answer that Kriya Yoga has. Basically, you can do Navi on any chakra, and the rest of the Om Japa is working the same way that the Navi is working. The Navi is very, very concentrated, and the Om Japa in all of the chakras is very, very broad. But you can zero in on one or two or three chakras, and that's the Kriya therapy. That can be very helpful. Or like I said, this is what I feel. I feel it. I Om into it. And then I notice if that feeling has shrunk. And then I Om again and again and again. And then I notice, oh my God, it shrunk some more. And I feel it still. And I Om, and it shrinks some more. And that's until it dissipates completely. And that is the Kriya Yoga therapy program. So very, very, very helpful, very, very effective. But you're talking about desire. And so there are desires like eating, and the body itself will ask for physical contact. It will ask to have sex. And Lahiri Baba said, look, you ought to have that about once every 2.5 weeks. That for most people, that's normal. So he wasn't forcing sex, but he was saying, don't force celibacy. He was very, very clear on that forced celibacy does not work. And his great grandson, Banmali Lahiri, he said it perfectly. He said, the spring pushed down will push back twice as hard. And so there's a level of desire that is natural. So I don't know specifically what we're talking about, but I just want to say that there is a level of desire which is very natural and healthy. And the Kriya Yoga can help to eat the edge off of that so it's not so powerful. But there's also a portion which ought to be addressed in our lives. And that's what Lahiri Baba was telling to his students. So great question. Stephen. Hi, Forrest. I'm wondering if one's dualistic Ishta or guardian angel is different from one's inner guru, or if the inner guru is the non-dual state. So yes, it's all of that. It's actually all one. So your Ishta, your guardian angel, is also your inner guru. And so when that information comes to you, that is the inner guru. And it may come to you in the form through any Ishta. And that knowing is coming from the right brain. So it is coming, the source of the knowing is the superconscious mind. It is the non-dual, right? But it's feeding you that knowing, and you experience it in a dualistic way. As it can come through your Ishta, it can come just simply a knowing, but all of that is passing to you in the moment in a dualistic way. And then you'll go into a non-dual state and you will become one. And there's really not a knowing, there's not a learning which takes place. The learning and the understanding, that's more for our left brain. When you're one, you're just one. But what will happen is you're going into the oneness and you'll get a download. And then you'll come out of the oneness and you'll get another download. And that's the right brain helping the left brain to understand. And so the download is actually a communication between the hemispheres, right? And so that's the inner guru, that you are touching the hem of the divine and a download happens. So beautiful question. And there are more, but I don't think how many. Yeah, that's about, we're already over 2 hours. We're 2 hours and 17 minutes. Thank you. Oh my God. And so much of you stuck around this whole time. Let me just look on the side if there's any last question that I missed. Yeah, okay, so we talked a little bit about the roll-up for Jack. During meditation, I can sometimes hear very high frequency buzzing sound. Yeah, that's the bumblebee, probably. I am not sure about its location. By closest source of sound seems to be the medulla. What do you think the sound is? That is that's the nada. And so it will start out very high pitched like a bumblebee. It'll be like, bee. And then it will go, so that they usually describe that's we're hearing the first chakra. And then it will go down as it becomes deeper. As we continue to listen, it will go like a flute. So it's gone down in pitch, right? And then it will go into a harp, they say. And then it will go into the sound of a gong. So it's kind of, and then it goes into the sound of rushing water, which is kind of, I don't know if I can do this. kind of like that. That's as good as I can do. And then it's just a continuous crashing wave, which is the sound of Om. And the best way to describe the actual sound of Om, put yourself under the shower so that water hits you right about here, and the water goes straight over both of your ears, and that sound of the continuous rushing water is the closest thing that I found that sounds like the Om vibration. But all of that, all of those sounds are labeled the nada. And so you're actually listening to the nada. You're actually listening to the sound. And then Yogananda would ask his students, when you hear the Om, see if you can hear all of those other sounds inside of that Om. So you see, it's complete sound. And you begin with one part, and then you start to hear the whole sound. So you don't have to do that exercise, but that is what you're hearing. And when you hear that, the next question is, okay, I hear it here. Can I hear it or feel it? Can I feel that sound? That's a strange question, right? But you can actually sometimes feel a sound. Can I hear it in the air around me? Can I help it? Can I use it to help me expand into an absorption? So that's a fun exercise and very cool. That is the nada when they talk about the sound. Nada just means sound. Damascus, next meditation, I'm going, excuse me. Next meditation, I'm going to remember to lose the edges, not just relax parts of my body. Beautiful. It's intriguing. Forest wasn't there, but some feeling remains in the heart. Beautiful. William has to go. The Desert Fathers wrote about this extensively, called Logos Mois, intrusive thoughts. Yeah. Waiting separates us in a way. Yes, it does. Okay, Julie had to go. Okay, did I get through all the... This is so awesome. Thank you, says Lesta. All right. All right, well. Lise has a question. I've got a question. I've been practicing meditation a few years and recently started your meditation techniques and Kriya. When I meditate, last thing at night, and go deep into what I would describe as samadhi and bright inner light, I wake up still with my inner mind light on, and it takes me up to 2 hours to ground back. The next morning, I basically go to sleep directly from meditation. I wake up still with my inner mind light on, and it takes me up to 2 hours to ground back the next morning. I basically go to sleep directly from meditation. Well, I'm not sure if I totally understand the question, so you might ask me another question next time, or you can ask it when I post this video. You can post it underneath if I didn't understand. But I had a question from one of my, this has happened several times. My student goes, I'm meditating at night and I'm getting supercharged with energy, and then I can't sleep. Like, I cannot sleep properly after a meditation. I'm like, yeah, that happened to me. And so you have to move up your meditation to earlier in the day so that you have time to relax, and then you can sleep properly. So that was my answer, that if I meditated too late at night, this went away after a while, by the way. So this was only a transition. But for a very long time, I would say years, and it might be very much shorter for you guys, but for a very long time, my body would be so charged that if I meditated and then tried to go to sleep, it was not going to work. It would not work at all. And so I had to move up my meditation to, like, I think 3 or 4 o'clock, and that would give me the time to relax from that energy, and then I could sleep properly. And then I started moving my main meditation into the morning, and I found that very, very helpful. So I think that might be your question. I'm not sure. And like I said, you're more than welcome to clarify after I post this video. But I've kept you for 2.5 hours. I think that's a lot. Thank you so much for joining me and spending your weekend time with me. Oh my God, Suba, it must be after midnight for you. So thank you, all of you, for joining us for so long. And really fantastic session. I really love this. And I think all of you are doing so great. And it's quite amazing, actually. You guys are amazing. Pooja, you're still here. We have to talk about the bandhas. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Siddhant, Olga. Oh my goodness, everybody's here. So fantastic.
You're amazing, Forrest G. You're
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. Was that Suba? Thank you so much. Huge hugs to all of you. Enjoy your weekend. You guys take care.